Great, because I have forgotten to record a couple of times before. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. Great. So for our mission, it's to be a catalyst for meaningful conversation and positive action. And so creating bracelets is sort of the thing that comes out of the conversation, the thing that is the reminder. It's the tangible thing that we love to gift to people. But this, at the center of it, it's truly about this connection that we have with this other person. And so what is an intention? It is a mental state that represents a commitment to carrying out an action or a way of being for the future. And so it's truly the mentality that we have that sort of guides our actions, that sort of guides how we interact with people and how we move through the world. And so with that intention, having that powerful word, we like to say, like, how your watch tells you what time it is, your intention tells you what to do with that time, how you want to be with your time. And who is a My Intent Maker? It's all of you and me and us in this community. And it is being a meaningful conversationalist. So having the conversation, what's your word? You know, being an active listener, asking those questions, allowing your curiosity to kind of take over, and being a guide when someone doesn't really know their word right off the bat, allowing them to dig within themselves to find their word, you know. And each person that you speak with, every conversation that you have is a ripple effect. And that then you continue to build the community around you. So that's what we say a My Intent Maker is. You know, first and foremost, you're building your community and creating these conversations with people. And so the maker stories that I wanted to share, there are two stories. This one is actually a yoga studio who the owners bought a maker kit, and they, with the pandemic, you know, a lot of closures have happened. And so in their New Year's workshop is an intention-based flow. And so this is in Delaware. So they have like a different, I don't know where everybody's from, heard. And so they were able to create a New Year's workshop. And from that workshop, they surprised their students with creating their bracelets at the end of class. And so it's a great way to supplement, if you have a business, supplement that business with creating these little tokens and these reminders for everyone. And the second story is from a maker named Jan, and she is super active. And another way that our makers like to use their maker kit outside of gifting and family and things like that is fundraisers. And so Jan was able to, so she told me the story. It's this family with two sets of twins, and one of the sets of twins, the little girl, she needed open heart surgery. And so what Jan did was a surprise fundraiser. And so she sold bracelets and keychains and raised over $1,700 to give to the family, because the family was flying back and forth from Michigan to Boston almost every month to get the care needed for their child. And so it's just really, it gives me goosebumps when I think about it, that this is such a powerful thing that Jan has done with her Michigan community. And so now we're on to how to help someone find their word. Does anybody have any questions so far? No? Okay, so how to help someone find their word. So this comes from a blog that Chris Pan, our founder, he wrote a few years ago to help people with how this is his process on how he helps someone find their word. And this is something that I've used at events and things like that. and it's fun. Okay, so before we begin, right, before you engage with another person to have this conversation, I like to prepare myself, like just like we did at the beginning of this workshop. I like to take a couple of deep breaths to just bring myself to the present. Um, and and then as I'm taking those deep breaths, I'm making sure that I stay open and curious, because we're about to ask someone some pretty big questions. And so I want to make sure that I'm able to be vulnerable with them in this conversation. It's a lot of times people feel that, and then they're able to reach those vulnerable places as well. And then to build my confidence, because I'm actually quite a shy person, and to just go for it and ask, what's your word? And to see where the conversation goes. So that's what I like to do to prepare. I don't know if you just heard my cat. um, and then when you engage with this person, uh, Chris likes to start with, what's your word? It's a big question. It's sort of interesting. Um, and and then follow up with your intention for the conversation. So that's the first sort of exchange of like, what's your word? And I would like to create this reminder for you, this word of intention for you. Um, and and that's the first openness. That's the first part of the sharing. And then pause and allow them to sort of think about the question that you ask. And then after the pause, if a word hasn't bubbled up yet, that's okay. It might be helpful to ask some follow-up questions. And for me, these are the 3 questions that we ask on our website. And this is the 3 questions that I sort of like to ask people at events. They're sort of getting to the point in a different way, each one of them. So the first question is, what's a quality or virtue you want more of in your life? Virtue sometimes is a big word too, that people feel like it's a little unattainable. And so I like to use the word quality. And if they're still a little bit hesitant on that, I'll ask, who is someone you admire? And what do you admire about them? So connecting a tangible person to the qualities that they admire. And then the point of this is sort of allowing people to practice this virtue that they admire and instill it within themselves. The second question is, what is the challenge you want to overcome? And this question is really interesting because it's sort of focusing on this obstacle. Sometimes it's really difficult to focus on a quality or virtue that you want more of in your life when you have this really big sort of rock in your path. And so whenever I ask, what's a challenge you want to overcome? It's sort of like acknowledging the rock that's in the path, and then taking one step further and asking, what will it take to get through this obstacle? What can help support you in moving through this challenge? And so it's allowing not just to focus on the problem or obstacle or challenge, but then seeing what's past that, what's beyond this, what is life without it, And then the last question is, what is something that makes you feel alive and want to focus on? And so sort of in the same vein as that first question, but really focusing in on sparking that joy in your life. What about all of these things makes you feel alive? If it makes you feel alive, then let's find those moments throughout the day, whether it's pausing for a second to notice what's around you, or what makes you feel alive is that morning routine that you have, and that discipline that you have. It allows you to feel like you're working towards something, that you have a purpose. And again, these are big questions that we're asking. So embrace the awkward silence. I know for me, when I started out, I really wanted to fill the silence because it is awkward and it's just like, oh, I'm just staring at this person. But it's the idea that we've asked these big questions and people are actually taking the time to think about it for themselves. And this could be questions that they may not have had asked to them ever, or in a very long time. And so when they're, you know, in that awkward silence, or whenever they're sharing sort of their stories and their mentality and things like that, we always want to support and acknowledge. And so allowing that curiosity to come out again and ask open-ended questions, like, tell me more about it, or that's not a question. Would you like to share more about that? Or how come this is so important? Like, what about this is important? Asking why, however you want to ask that question. It's it's sort of just digging a little bit deeper. All these questions are sort of right there at the very top. And so we also have question cards. In your maker kit, you all have question cards that come with the kit. And if you haven't used them before, so I like to use them at events, also as conversation starters. They are sort of, I'm gonna stop the screen share for a second. So these are the question cards. They come with, a little instruction, a little like, getting ready, take 3 deep breaths, and then it launches into the questions. And so these are sort of interesting questions that you may not ask people normally on a day-to-day basis. What makes you lose track of time, things like that. And so I like to use them just as, like, there's always a follow-up question to it. It's like, what moves you to tears or gives you goosebumps? And then they share that answer, like, oh wow, so what about it gives you goosebumps? Like, what is so special about it? What is the memory behind it? Can you share more? And so there's a couple of questions that you can ask in order to help a person get to their word if you're choosing to use the question cards. And it's also a pretty fun game to play with, like, family or friends, people that you know pretty well, because I feel like the questions themselves aren't really questions that you ask. And so hearing the answers that come out of it could be really interesting. Linda asked, what if they want to put a name on the bracelet? That is a great question, and we will be getting to that as well. I'm going to share my screen again. So going deeper, does anybody have any questions so far besides the bracelet and the name? Nope. Okay. Going deeper. So this is also a part of the blog that we'll link, but it's sometimes, when we have a conversation, the first word that pops up may not be their word. And it's not to, sometimes it is, sometimes it absolutely, but sometimes, like, you just get that feeling that, oh, there's more to this conversation. I'm not done with this person yet. And so then we sort of dig a little deeper. And so, Linda, this is your exact question. So this is probably the most consistent and thing that I've gotten throughout the events that we've done is parents wanting their child's name. And so Chris goes through this example of, he was helping a mom and the mom wanted her child's name, and then he asked her what quality she wanted to have to be a great parent. And then she said courage. For me, what I had asked parents and people, whoever it is, sometimes it's not a child, but sometimes it's a partner's name, or, someone who, unfortunately may have passed and things like that, and keeping their memory alive. And so what I like to ask is, what, for specifically parents, I would ask, how do your children motivate you each day to be the best version of yourself? Or what is the quality that you want to embody so that you can teach your children to embody this quality as well? When it comes to other people, sometimes I like to ask, what inspires you about them? What about them brings you joy? What quality is it like that? We have a story. This maker, her fiance passed away, and during Christmas time, she actually did this thing called Advent to Remember. And so she actually came to the last maker training, and during the section, she asked herself, what did she love about her fiance the most? And she said that it was how he cared for people. And so her word was care. And so then she did Advent to Remember, and she was gifting people bracelets throughout the Advent season, as a way that she's embodying that care that her fiance had for people. So it was such a touching story. And that's an example of going a little bit deeper. Linda asks, how do you handle when a person makes a mistake and wants to start over? We'll get there as well, Linda. You're right on the money with all these questions. So the second example of going deeper is, so Chris shares the story of a coffee shop owner, and his first word is success. And so then what would it take to achieve success? The coffee shop owner shares community. That's the sense of community in his space. And so whenever it's a word like success or happy, that can totally be their word. But sometimes it's about asking them, what does it mean to you? What does it feel like to you? What does it look like to you? To really see that this intention is what they're envisioning in their head, just to clarify that word for them, with them. And so what is the motivation behind the word? What will it feel like to be successful? And for this person, success was having a community. So that's another way of going a little deeper whenever you have that sense that maybe this conversation isn't done. And so my number one tip to any maker is to trust your intuition. Sometimes you have a conversation with someone and that first word is the perfect word, and it's like lightning has struck, and it's there. And sometimes it needs a little bit more, and only you can feel that. And the second thing is to really have fun. The energy that you bring into the conversation will allow them to let loose, and it's just as important as helping someone find their word, because then, I think sometimes I've noticed that whenever I come in with like a super intense energy, people will think that, oh my gosh, this word has to be the word forever. And then I'm like, oh shoot, no, let me shake it out. And this can be your word for now, for a month, for 3 months. What is appropriate for you in this moment? So having fun and making sure that you're also not just going through the motions, but really being engaged with this person. That is my 2 tips for makers. Any questions so far? When Jackie asks, when appropriate, can you discuss how we can use my intent to do a fundraiser? Yes, absolutely. I can talk about that right now. Right after I talk about Galentine's Day, if anybody wants to host like a virtual party, I feel like this is a really sweet way of doing it, to sort of gather a goodie box. This is if you are in town with people, and then you can do porch drop-offs. So as you can see in the picture, like I made a little goodie box full of, it's a chocolate, it's a little a tiny little wine or question cards, and then you can gift a word, or if you're gathering virtually and they find their word beforehand, and you can stamp their word and gift it to them as well. If not, then you can always find their word during the party and then gift it to them afterwards. If you're not in the same town, you can always give them the list of things to gather, so that the night of, you're sort of doing the same activities, and that is always fun. For Galentines and gifts like that, sometimes people like to think about the person and then gift a word that means a lot to them. So that's also a really good way to start off the party. In your box, you have you have a word, and you share why you chose this word for that person. And I think everybody loves to hear how people love them. So, so it's this is a fun way to do it. So I'm gonna go into, Jen says, okay, thanks Jen for being with us. Debbie, we'll get to stamping for sure. Linda, what if a word is not so positive? Example, loss, pain, etc. So it's all about, I like to say it's all about sort of reframing the word, right? So in the beginning, when Marie shared her word and she said self-love, it was about saying yes to the things that were bigger, saying yes to the things that was healthy for her soul, for that showed her self-love. And so, like, I've had people who said no, or have had curse words be a part of it. And it's all about sort of like, okay, so if you're saying no, in saying no, what are you saying yes to? In loss, what are you gaining? What is the outcome of the pain? What is on the other side of the pain? So being curious in that way of like, this is the question, what is the challenge that you want to overcome, right? They're talking about the challenge. And so we want to take that one step further of what is on the other side of that. What would life look like on the other side of that challenge, on the other side of that loss? Because it is an intention, because you'll be seeing it, right? If you see loss every day, then that's sort of what you'll see in life. And so asking them what do they want to see in their life can be a good marker for that. So just sort of flipping it on its head sometimes will help. And then for my intent as a fundraiser. So whenever there's any money exchange, we ask people to become a certified maker. And so we have a maker certification. It's free and it's quick. It's just for quality assurance. We just want to make sure that you're practicing consistently. And then we have like a fundraising page that I can share with you in the follow-up email, how people have done it virtually and in person. And we have sort of a template for an order form. Usually if you go with like a GoFundMe or something like that, where people donate a certain amount and then you can send them a word. There's actually quite a few different ways. Usually for pricing, we like to say if you can base it off of our prices, which is like $20 for a classic bracelet. But depending on where you live and the people around you and the community that you have, that may be a little bit too high. And so you might need to like bring it down a little bit. And the things to consider would be like if you are taking out any money for the supplies, the cost of supplies, then you would have them then you would have sort of a donation minimum in order to get a bracelet. and we've had schools do it, and so they would give out this order sheet and then sell it, um, and then people would give it back to them. That might not be the easiest thing to do at this time because nobody's gathering, and so you can definitely do a GoFundMe and then like use your social media to get orders and things like that. And on GoFundMe, you would have to do like to an individual so that you can pull out money, um, versus the money going straight to the charity. Um, is there a pricing sheet? We don't have a exact pricing sheet, but we do sort of help you calculate how much you would want to sell for. Um, do you charge per bracelet or your time if you're working at a fundraising event? So that's a great question. We have three ways that we've seen people do it. So if you're stamping at an event, you can do like a package deal. So you'll get this many bracelets and you'll get this many hours. And that is the cost of the entire package. Or you can do for every bracelet that this event gives that you sell at this event, then you're going to take this much per bracelet because that's the cost of the supplies. And for your time, you can always just add on a few dollars just so that, if you're doing it for someone else, making sure that you get a little bit so that you can buy more supplies as well, if that's what you choose. And yeah, I'll definitely link that fundraising page because we have many different ways that makers have done it in the past. And it's been really interesting to share all of it and how people have done it. Any other questions? Lorianne asked, this is about living your best life, correct? Yes, it is. The life that you want to live, and sometimes Tara asked, if you work a fundraiser, do people have pre-made bracelets and make them on? Both. So it depends on the type of fundraiser that you're working at. At events, it's interesting because you can have bracelets out on your table pre-made and people can sort of purchase that if they want, but actually stamping and the noise of stamping intrigues people, and so they come to you whenever they hear that. And so it's a sort of a good way to show how to get people to come to your booth if you're working a fundraiser. And then you'll just be practicing and having those bracelets out if people wanted to purchase them. So you can do both pre-made and then just be there with people, or you can live stamp with making pre-made bracelets too. The t-shirt that I'm wearing currently is on our website. It's part of our maker shop, and I think it's in the accessories or extras or something like that. I can link the t-shirt as well. But yeah, this is my intent t-shirt. It's your word. It's great. Very comfortable. And okay, if anybody has any other questions? Okay, Trudy asked, can you explain more about certified maker? So this is really just for us to know how many people decide to sell, because if you're gifting, then you don't have to become a certified maker. If there's any exchange of money, that's whenever you need to become a certified maker. And it's really, really because we want to make sure that everybody is practicing and that everybody has like a standard of stamping, because we have you stamp a token, stay focused, to be able to become a certified maker. So it's so it's a little bit of practice beforehand, but it's free and it's quick and it's fun, and then you get a certificate and it has your name on it and it's really cute. Yes. And so I'm going to show stamping if everybody's ready. If you have more questions, please let me know. Oh, and Trudy, I'll also link the certified maker page in the follow-up so that any questions that you have, we'll answer it, because it does get into sort of like the business and all that stuff. So there's a lot of answers on that page itself for certified makers. Okay, cool. So Stamping 101. Before we start, if you are anything like me, or a lot of our makers, you have a streak of perfectionism inside of you. And that perfectionism comes out when you're stamping bracelets and tokens, because it's sort of like there's a spacing thing, everything like that. And so we want to really hone in that these are handmade. And so because we are each unique, we have our own style. There's no other person who is like you in the entire universe. Like in that moment that you were created, that's it. There's only you. And so with that, the style that you have for stamping will be unique to yourself, just like handwriting. But with that perfectionism mentality, we can shift it to having the perfect conversation, having that perfect connection with another person. And if you can see on the screen, the token says deathbed and the E is actually backwards. And so the story behind that is, so Chris was at a restaurant and he saw Conan O'Brien. It's like, wow, I'm going to walk up to him and ask him if I can make him a bracelet. And so that's exactly what he did. And Conan O'Brien was like, my word is deathbed. And the story behind it is that when I'm on my deathbed, I want to remember the important moments of my life. I want to live my life in such a way that on my deathbed, I will have cherished all these memories. And so Chris is like, great, that's such a unique word. Let's stamp it. And so he stamps it, and the E is backwards. And he's like, oh no, this is not perfect. And so he goes to Conan O'Brien and is like, is this okay? I can make you another one if you want. But then Conan O'Brien's like, this is even more perfect than I could have imagined. So because it represents his word and it represents the conversation that they had. And so even if we think, right, as a maker, even if we think that the spacing is a little off, the lettering is a little off, 99% of the time, people they'll see the word and they'll remember the conversation and they'll remember you and how you made them feel in finding their word. So that's like the biggest thing about perfectionism for me that I've had to really practice, is like, it's about the conversation that we've just had. And if someone messes up and they want to make a new one, I always say, just keep going, finish the bracelet, and then look at it as a whole. If you look at it and you see, wow, that is actually a perfect bracelet for me, then I feel like that's how everything is, because we make a mistake and then we can only hone in on the mistake and we sort of stop there. But if you continue with the word, then maybe it actually doesn't change that much, and it's actually a really great bracelet. So so we'll go on to stamping. If anybody has any questions, let me know. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and then I'm going to move the camera. So I'll talk about setup, spacing, depth, and then we'll stamp 2 words. So in your maker kit, you get a hammer, a stamping base, letter stamps, and your question cards that we talked about earlier. I have something, this is a 4x4 by 3 feet. And this is a game changer. If you can get to like a Lowe's or a Home Depot or any like lumber place, any place that sells lumber, and get this, it helps with stamping depth, it helps with noise, and it just gives you a really solid place to stamp. Because if you've tried doing it on a tabletop, you've noticed it's quite loud. And so this really, really helps with the noise and the depth. Another solution for that is like if you don't want to get this piece of wood, I have a 15-pound anvil that sometimes, you know, at events, I don't have a chair or anything. Then I'll have this on the table and the anvil on the tabletop, and then it does the same thing as this piece. It's a 4x4 by 3 feet. So it's a 4x4 piece of wood by 3 feet. Yes, and we also have instructions on how to create this yourself. And so I'll include that as well. But yeah, it's about 3 feet high. Yeah. Okay, and then I have a rose gold twist bracelet. So we're gonna stamp the words "find joy" this evening. And can you see that? A little too bright. How's that? A little better? Okay, so with your, yes, this is the stamping base right here. So you put your token on, and on your stamping base, you'll see there's a couple places for you to put your string. It has these 2 levels for the string specifically, for bracelets. So what you're gonna do, you're gonna take your letter stamp. Your letter stamp will always be facing you like this. Oh, Candace, so if you bought your maker kit before 2018 or 2019 actually, then you won't have a sticker. I'll share my email at the end, and then you can email me because these stickers are really, really practical. So yeah, so on your, for if you have purchased it recently, you know, you'll have the sticker on the base where it shows you where to put the token, where to stamp, and how to rotate it. And so what I like to do is your letter will always be facing you. Always, always, always. That will keep you from stamping upside down. And so I like to take 3 fingers, put my stamp down, use these 3 fingers sort of as an anchor on the center peg. And then you're going to use your thumb to push the letter stamp flush against the center peg. So it's sort of very secure. And I like to use these 3 fingers also because then that sort of keeps you from double stamping, like having that ghost shadow. But sometimes it happens even whenever you're doing it. So just to be a little mindful of it. So you're always going to stamp at the center of the base. Let's see. Here we go. That's the first one. And then what you're gonna do is, okay, so you have your J in the center. You're just gonna rotate it to this red line. And so the center of the letter will go straight through that red line. Yeah. Yes, I'm doing the word joy first. So because I'm stamping 2 words, I personally like to do the bottom word first. So it sort of acts as an anchor for the top word. So then, and I'll explain what that means in a second. And so you rotate it, and then you again push with your thumb against the center peg. You're using your other fingers as an anchor. And I am not one of those people who can stamp once and hit really hard. So this is my way of doing it, is to really get in there and make sure my letter stamp is on. So yeah. Then I'm gonna do joy real quick. So here is joy. You can see that. There you go. Okay. Tara, yes, the 9 and the 6 are just the same stamp. That's the only stamp that you will have to switch upside down, just so that we can get another symbol in there. Okay, so whenever you're doing 2 words, here is my little template that I like to make. This is just for my own reference. I'm creating a sort of template that you can print out, and so that you can sort of mark like this, but so that'll be coming hopefully in the next few months. And so I like to draw this out first. This is a token, and then I write joy on the bottom, and then I write a center line through, and then write my top word. And so you can see that joy is a 3-letter word, and find is a 4-letter word. And so the center of the token will go through the O, but it'll go straight in between 2 letters on the top word. And so what you're gonna do is you see that, and then you're like, okay, now you know the spacing, right? The spacing for the I will go in between the O and the Y. And then the spacing for the F will go on the other side of the Y. Yeah. So then for me, I like to just do it to the front letter, and then whenever I stamp it, it'll the way that the base is, it'll just help. So it's just a good guide to know sort of where the first letter of the top word will go. Okay, so so you have your bottom word, right? Do this. You take your token off. If the higher ledge is facing you for the bottom word, you just rotate it 180 degrees, and the ledge is away from you. And then you put your token back on there. And so then your letter stamps will still be facing you. Okay, your letter stamps will still be facing you, because then they'll be facing the same way as the bottom words. And so I have O here. Can you see that? Yeah. The O here, right in the center. And then I'm like, okay, so the I will go in between the O and the Y, and then the F will go on the other side of the Y. And then because this is upside down, now my thumb is going to be against the center peg, and I'm going to use these 3 fingers to push up against the center peg. And this is a little bit more of an odd feeling, so it's definitely something that you would want to practice a little bit more. And then yeah, there's the F, and then you just rotate it to the blue dotted line, and it acts as the same as the red line for the bottom word. And we're constantly looking for improvements. So if you have any feedback for us as you practice, I would love to hear it. And of course, each I is quite a skinny letter. So it's sort of finding your spacing, how you like it. For an I like to keep it, if the blue line is going through the center of the I, it's a little bit too far for my taste. And so I make sure that it's just inside the blue line a little bit. Not a crazy amount, just ever so slightly, because every every little turn of the token actually makes sort of a significant difference in terms of degrees because it's such a small token. And so then find joy. So if you can see, like, this isn't perfect, right? Like the N and the D are touching. The top word is like a little bit less space than the bottom word, but I think it's pretty cute. And I feel like it gets the message across. And so does anybody have any questions? Jackie has a question. When you put the letter down, it's against the semicircle, not the straight part. Yes, exactly. So it'll be against this semicircle part. Yep. Any other questions? You can definitely unmute yourself if you have any questions, whether it's stamping or with the asking someone for their word and things like that. How do you string up the strings? Asked Catherine. Like tying bracelets. So we have a tutorial on how to tie bracelets as well. We have several different string styles that we go through. We go through everything except for the twist bracelet because it's a completely different method of tying bracelets. It's sort of a lot more complicated. Yes, we do provide the size for the cord. So our classic, if you go on our website and you purchase a spool of string, we also have the diameter of the string. It's good for classic and round and other braided types of bracelets, but our twist is a significantly smaller string, but you can see like we're using more of it. Like there's 4 strands here. And so the spool that we sell is also the string that we use for our classic and round bracelets. Beads, we don't sell the beads. We've been actually debating on whether or not to keep the beads on our round bracelets, but we have a lot of makers who decide to share where they get their beads and things like that. We have makers who create beaded bracelets with the token in the center, which is pretty cool too. Any other questions? Candace asks, are certain soft metals softer than others? Depth. Oh yes. So a lot of research went into choosing this token because brass is actually a little bit softer than stainless steel. I mean, much softer than stainless steel. And so for me, the brass and the nickel are soft enough that you can get a deep impression without like really hammering it in. But it also keeps its shape really well, so that whenever you do have someone who's a little stronger and they're really doing deep impressions, it'll still be it won't be like wonky in there. Linda asked, can you get the little cards that hold the bracelets online? Yes, we also sell our maker cards. So they're called, so the maker cards you can also find in the tools and accessories of the maker shop. So I'll link the maker shop, and through there you can buy tokens themselves, strings itself, you can buy refill pre-made bracelets, and the t-shirt and the maker cards. We also sell these like sort of like hanging. It's like this board and has like these hooks, and you could put your maker card like if you're selling at an event for people to see. We do have numbers and symbol stamps. I'm not exactly sure how much money it is, but I'll link that as well in the follow-up email. And Yes, so we do have a number of makers who make their own bracelets. We have, so I'm gonna share my screen in a little bit after everybody's questions, and I'll show you the maker Facebook group. And we have a ton of makers who are so creative. They've created their own different types of bracelets. They buy our tokens because they're certified makers. So then it's sort of like that quality thing. You know that you'll get like this gold plated, it'll be nice, things like that. And then some people make bookmarks or keychains and things like that. And so we have a ton of creative people. But yeah, I'll show you that really quickly if you have just a minute, and then we'll be off for the night. Okay. We don't sell non-branded tokens, mainly because it's my intent. So we are thinking about changing the back of the token so it's a little message from us. But this year with the shipping and supplies and everything like that, everything's been taking a lot longer than normal. So we're working on it. And so, okay, so this is our Maker Resource Center. It's myintent.org/MRC. And I'll link this in the follow-up email. But this is your one stop for everything Maker that you'll need to know, like onboarding, any documents, any checklists that you may need, helping you find your word, helping other people find their word, and that will bring you to like the word finder quiz and everything like that if you haven't checked it out. We have all these how-to training guides, and be sure to click here for more training and instruction, and it'll bring you to this page. And then you can see like the how to stamp, stamping with depth. So it'll show you the different surfaces and the different depths that you'll get from different surfaces. And also how to like build one, how to build this wooden base that I showed you. It'll show you how to use your question cards if you have any questions for that. And it'll show you different ways to tie your bracelet and what you'll need for it. And then our Facebook maker group is this one, facebook.com/groups/myintentmaker. I'll also link this. You won't see this, this is sort of admin, but there are so many ways that people have created bracelets and shared tips and tricks and things like that. And if you have any questions, this is probably your fastest way of getting an answer because it has so many answers and questions from makers throughout the years that you just come up here and search in the group your question. And I'm almost sure if you don't get an answer, then you can ask in the group and then we'll help you find that answer. But this is the most interactive way. And we also have, this is an unofficial document. So if you want to get together with any makers, if you have an event and you need more makers or anything like that, then you can click on this and add your information or find other makers in your area. And this is all by volunteer basis. You don't have to share your information if you don't want to, not at all. But it's sort of nice whenever you need other makers and you can rely on these people. Do you have the how-to or templates to run a find your word? We do have a how-to. I'll link the blog on how to help someone find their word for events and things like that. We've had a lot of people use journal prompts because it's a lot of people. And then, or, you can find in the maker group how people have done it at events. For an ongoing group. Okay, so I feel like this could be a really fun way to sort of open up one conversation, and then each meeting that you have, you can create sort of a checkup. But I'm gonna put in if you signed up for tonight, you have my email, but I'll put it in here just in case. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I would love to hear from you because I feel like this is a really fun conversation and I would love to continue it. But it is 6:03 and I don't want to keep you longer than what you signed up for. But if you want to stay on and if you have any questions, let me know. I'll be here for a few more minutes. But if not, thank you so much for tonight. It has been a joy to be here with you. Many people turned on their cameras. Thank you so much. And let me know if you have any questions. If I wasn't clear on anything, reach out. I will be here, here for you. That is my whole existence right now, and I love it. So thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annie.
Of course.
Can you put your email on there again?
Yes.
Thank you.
I do work for my intent. Yeah.
Thank you. Got it.
Talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone. Have a good night.
You too.